So for those of you who've been following me on Twitter, this video has gone through several iterations. The problem I've been facing with this one is that one video doesn't seem to be enough to completely cover absolutely everything that this game has going for it, and the points that I could talk about here are endless. But after 4 different drafts for a rant video, and then a long and laborious attempt at making a true review plays video, I thought, for fuck's sake, I have got to figure out a way to talk about this game and highlight the parts that I want to talk about somehow. How did I used to do this in the past? Alright, a rant video. Wait, hang on. So apologies if this one is a bit shit, but hopefully along the way we'll be able to have some laughs, kick back and praise Hope Jesus on what a time it is to be alive by staying indoors and playing RimWorld. Anyways, shut up and give me a chance to explain what this game is about, okay? It's only taken me months to finally get this shit squared away, and I'm not about to let one of my overly eager distractions or tangents get in the way of a good rant. So here goes. Rarely do I find a game that seems so simple and innocent on the surface, but ends up being as deep as the Mariana Trench and just as dark too. RimWorld is a top-down indie game that involves several elements. It's a sci-fi game with a focus on crafting, base building, social aspects, a real-time RPG, a survival game, a tactical shooter, and a horror game. Fuck it, throw in some anime in there and you've pretty much got a Persona game. The general premise is that you and whoever you've brought with you have crash-landed on a backwater, outer rim planet. A RimWorld, if you will.
He said it! He said it!
And your objective is to find a way to escape the planet whilst not dying in the process. But since there isn't a convenient spaceship just sitting there gagging to be fired up and used, you're gonna have to go Bear Grylls style and start making your own base or home or town or whatever you want really. So you'll have to mine out some stone to make stone walls or furniture, you'll have to chop wood to get some wood to make wooden stuff, duh. Then you'll have to make rooms for each of your colonists and fill them with what they need, such as a bed, a nightstand, a dresser, maybe even a table and chair to sit at. And maybe you're not actually a night owl as well, so you'll need to build an electrical light source in there so they can see— whoops, your base doesn't have power yet, so everyone's in the dark. Okay, so I'll build a wind turbine outside and connect everything up using power lines. Okay, now we have light, so let's get some electric heaters going. Whoops, your wind turbines can't supply enough electricity to power all of this. Also, there's no wind, so there's no power. Okay, so I'll build a research bench then, and research better ways of generating electricity. There's solar panels, which isn't obviously going to work at night. There's water mills, which are often exposed and a long way away from your base, or even geothermal generators, which have the same problem. But hey, at least your power issue is sorted. Now everyone can at least see and be warm in the base while they all starve to death because you haven't sorted out a proper food source yet. So you designate some areas for farming and have a couple of food sources going, and while you're at it, you've sent someone out to hunt wild animals or maybe sort out a lone raider, and they're getting their ass handed to them, so everyone's got to go to help. Okay, so you've got raw food now, but no one likes raw food unless they're mental, and believe me, some characters like it that way. But now you've got to cook it all to create meals. So you build an electric stove, which is another drain on your electricity supply. And now I get to explain how cooking works in this game whilst impersonating YouTube cooking channels. So what you're gonna want to do first is take some freshly grown rice and mix about 10 units of it together till they're homogenized. Then season with some kosher salt and cook lightly for about 5 seconds until it's cooked all the way through. And there you have it, a simple meal consisting of rice and— that's about it. But now for that all-important cross section, which we can't actually do because of graphics, but at least it joins the Clean Play Club. But then after all of this, finally, it's all come together. Your base is lit up, fully furnished, heated, and with a year's supply of food safely stored away in the freezer, all of which you've built with your own 2 hands. Time to relax a little, get some research done, and look into ways of getting off this planet. Oh, never mind. You're experiencing a heat wave and all the food in your freezer has expired. And now everyone's starving. And now some of them are fighting each other because one of them said something bad about the other's aunt or some shit. So there's social aspects about this game. The social aspects can be quite obvious when you think about it. Each colonist essentially is their own character with their own personality, their own traits, their own interests, and their own special something that makes them go nuclear. Personally, I like creating a band of misfits that should never be put together in a survival situation, adding to an increased level of difficulty. And thanks to the Prepare Carefully mod, you can customize and create your own colonists. Seriously, this game is awesome, but then mods came along and made it even better. So my 3 main colonists will always include Chad Broski, the chaddest Chad you'll ever meet in a storytelling RPG, who's great at hurting other people and literally nothing else. But at least he thinks he's great at everything, meaning that, yes, I have recreated the Dunning-Kruger effect in this game. We've also got one of my favourite video game characters of all time in the way of Blotch Serene, who is a returning character from a Crusader Kings 2 campaign that I played back in 2019, who essentially... If anyone remembers the character Babette from Skyrim's Dark Brotherhood questline, Blotch is essentially a demonic version of her, with a murder count that will never truly be known, whilst also being the queen of her own kingdom. She is amazing at everything despite being an immortal 14-year-old girl, and her hobbies include murdering people via drowning, invading Lower Egypt, and giving other rulers cancer through satanic rituals. Oh, and there's also that one time when she demonically possessed a bishop and turned him into her own private sex slave, but we don't talk about that. Given how amazing she is, her stats are maxed out on everything, but she's also a fucking psycho. And then finally, a man who needs no introduction. Needless to say, all 3 of these colonists hate each other, and given that this is the type of game where things can go from really good to hopeless in the snap of a finger, everyone's stress levels can go into overdrive very quickly. Another factor you need to keep in mind when playing this game is everyone's mental well-being. If a colonist is cold, then they're not happy. If they're cold and hungry, then they're pissed off. If they're cold, hungry, and their clothes are falling apart, then they've almost had it. And if they're cold, hungry, their clothes are falling off, and then one of the others says that their aunt gives off a weird odour, well then, the gloves are off, and it's that scene in Rambo 3 where they're choosing what sort of construction materials to glue to their hands before throwing said hands into the other guy's face. Some mental breakdowns can be quite funny here, and it's only now that I've read that line out loud and I realise how bad that sounds, but I'm talking about the game still. Some instances may include a colonist turning into the Incredible Sulk and locking themselves in their room. You could have someone just fuck off and wander around outside for a few days. Someone might go and pick out what food you have. But then other times it can get quite concerning, such as a murderous frenzy that's aimed at any of the animals you might have, or they'll even attempt to kill another colonist, or maybe even start a fire in your base. In one case, I had a dude who loved starting fires, and ordinarily, this was just a nuisance. That was until he decided to start a fire on top of an anti-grain warhead, which, for anyone who's not played this game, is essentially the closest thing in the vanilla version of RimWorld to that of a nuclear warhead. Within 3 seconds, half the base had vanished, all the food was gone, most of the cows were dead, and 5 out of 9 colonists were never seen again. Somehow this dude survived though, and his punishment was pretty severe as I'll explain later, but this just demonstrates how important it is to keep everyone's mental state in check. Even a mild tantrum could get a colonist killed. If they're overeating, then you may run out of food if you're short as it is. If they've gone for a wander outside, that might be fine normally, but not if you're under siege or experiencing a toxic fallout, and all of this can easily lead to problems that may even end in your colony failing or you getting a game over. Okay, so it might have sounded like I didn't like this game just now, but believe me when I say that I absolutely love this game. It's just that there are certain features in this game that there is quite literally no counter for. Cold snaps are fine, you just turn up the heating, make sure you've created some heat logs between your main base and your outside and whatever, and make sure that it's well insulated, and also make sure to craft some parkas and talks for everyone to wear. A solar flare will disable all of your electrics, which means your freezer is going to get warmer in the summer and your base is going to get colder in the winter, but this only lasts a few hours, it's no big deal. You'll occasionally get an electrical overload in your base too, which drains all of your batteries to zero, and can even cause small fires or even explosions. No problem, you got fire foam traps that can automatically put those out. A heat wave has occurred? Well, I guess everyone's going to be going hungry then, because aside from having smaller freezers, and several of them, I can find no way of countering this feature. If you get a heatwave, say goodbye to all of your food since there is nothing you can do. Volcanic winters and toxic fallouts are just as bad. In fact, I lost a run to one of these. If you get hit with one of these, make sure you've got enough indoor hydroponics to feed your colony, because stepping outside is practically a death sentence. Anyone who remains outside for longer than a short burst of time will die. Any farms or plants that you have outside will be dead within a day. All animals on the map will be dead within a few days if left outside too. Essentially, you're under siege from nature herself, and this event, I kid you not, can last for months. On the run where my colony died, this event had been going on for 3 out of 4 seasons, at which point we had long run out of food and my noble was making ridiculous demands like making 100 fine meals with absolutely no food that we had in stock. People started getting angry with each other and with him for making stupid demands, and eventually it all ended in a bloodbath. Everyone attacked each other, and although some survived, they all bled out shortly after. It was like some kind of Fallout Vault shit in there. But that's the beauty with RimWorld. It's not actually about the winning. It's about all the crazy shit that happens along the way. Even the game itself says that to get the most out of this game, you don't necessarily focus on winning. Whether you win or lose, it's the story that counts, and you've created that story. And so, I would like to share with you some of the funniest stories that have happened to me. So another of the RNG events you can get is that sometimes groups of random animals will suddenly appear on the map, pre-tamed, and will join your colony. Well, one time I had a huge swarm of ducks join, which is great if you like eggs as a food source, and if you think ducks are cute. But it's not so great if you don't like everyone starving to death because the ducks got into the freezer and eaten most of the food. It eventually became clear that it was either going to be us or them, and only one faction was going to survive the year. By the end of the massacre, 6 out of 8 ducks were dead, with 2 females being kept alive only so that they could produce eggs, but they were barred from entering the freezer, having to make do with eating plants outside. So as each game goes on, you'll have the chance to have new people join your colony, and there's always that slight chance that some of them may fall in love and develop a relationship together. Some colonists may want to form multiple relationships, however. So there was this one guy whose stats were awful and kept setting fires to things because he had the pyromaniac trait. Actually, this is the same guy I talked about before who nukes my base, but anyway. Prior to the nukes going off, he ended up falling in love with another colonist, and they both got married, and he even moved into her room and everything. Sounds like it all worked out, right? Well, no, because I swear the very next day he was hitting on another female colonist and immediately moved into her room instead. Now, colonists can get divorced in this game too, and they can also find out if their partner is cheating on them, and this will have a negative mood buff applied to them if so. Thing is, his wife had no idea. And she was in the adjacent room too! But if it's any consolation, while this guy's new lover knew about his wife, she wasn't aware of the second lover he was seeing. That's right, he had his own harem fantasy going on, so I still to this day do not see what they all saw in him. In the end, the entire thing just devolved into an episode of the Jeremy Kyle show, after his wife found out about lover number 1 and they got a divorce. At which point, the dude got really upset and wondered why his ex-wife would do such a thing. Maybe that's why he triggered the nukes, but we'll never know. You can domesticate animals in this game, having suggested as much with the duck incident earlier. Most animals are animals that you've heard of, while some are fictional only to this game, such as Muffalo. But in one instance, I found a trader who was selling elephants, and I jumped on this chance immediately. I bought a young male and a young female. They would serve as pack mules for when I went to go trade stuff with the Empire, but the reason why I got one of each was so that I could breed them, and therefore I could sell their young for extra profit, or maybe keep 1 or 2 back for when my first pair gets old, so that I have a new generation of elephants ready. Thing is though, is that if a colonist gets attached to an animal, they'll name it. In one case, the female had given birth to a male calf, who I was intending to sell not long after this, but one of my colonists bonded with this calf and named it Snarfy. So when it was time to go and trade with the Empire, I took Snarfy along and sold him for a tidy profit. However, another RNG event that this game includes are wild animal attacks, and years after I traded Snarfy to the Empire, my base was attacked by a group of berserk elephants. Snarfy was one of them, now a grown adult. I like to think that he had somehow rallied the other elephants that he was being kept with together, broke out of the Empire's holdings, and led an attack on my colony in revenge for selling him into elephant slavery and keeping him away from his parents. Unfortunately, no elephant survived the attack, and when Snarfy was killed, his body landed on a conveyor belt that I had built because I was using mods at the time, and his body began to get transported back to the heart of my base. The whole thing looked like some kind of funeral procession, so I got all of my colonists to form a line on either side of the conveyor belt and fired off a saluting shot as his body passed us by. Snarfy's life and deeds were commemorated afterwards with the construction of a giant jade monument on the spot where he died, and the colonists had a celebratory meal too afterwards, consisting of elephant meat now that they had loads in stock. Yeah, we ate him. You heard that right. These are just a few examples of the things that can happen to you in this game. It's quite often random, with just how much RNG that occurs being set by you at the start of the game. This game has a sort of a difficulty setting, but you're mainly just choosing your RNG settings more than anything. Personally, I like to play on Randy Random, but on normal difficulty, mainly because I hate myself, but not to a huge extent. There are also other factions in this game too. Some of them are neutral, some are friendly, and others want you dead and will launch raids against your colony. And you could be nice and just repel them like the good little boy or girl that you are, or maybe you're even nicer than that, and you'll capture injured enemies after the fight so you can nurse them back to health and send them on their way, which will improve your relations with that faction. Sure, you can do all of that. Or you could capture those injured enemies, nurse them back to health in a highly defensive prison that you've constructed, then check out their stats and see how much they would sell for, and if it's a good price, take them to the Empire and sell them into slavery. Alternatively, if they don't sell for much, there's always option B at your disposal, and now I get to talk about what happened to the cheating dude who nuked most of my base earlier. Well, the other colonists weren't too happy about what happened, and neither was I, so I had all 3 remaining colonists put out the fires first, then they arrested him and threw him into prison that I had constructed. But he wasn't in any pain, no. We sent him to sleep first before we started removing his organs. Yes, you heard that right. You can harvest people's organs and sell them on the black market for a tidy profit, man. And it turns out that there's an exact science to organ harvesting too. I mean, you can't just take whatever you want in whatever order you want. Oh no. The trick is to put them on industrial meds, then harvest a kidney, followed by a lung, and then the heart if you want to get maximum profit. And when you're done with the body, you can cut it up to get human meat, so you can then feed that to your animals or maybe the other prisoners that you've got. And then you can use their skins to create leather jackets and cowboy hats. So yeah, this game has a dark side to it too. Murder, cannibalism, setting fire to shit, slavery, organ harvesting, genocide, war crimes. You can become an aggressive tribe by going raiding into other factions' territories, killing them all, taking the survivors as prisoners and for whatever wills you wish, and clearing out the base of all their valuables. Prisoners can be executed too, or simply banished from your colony. With mods added in, you can do even more evil shit. One of my favourite mods is called Atomics, which allows you to build several new additions to your base, including, but not limited to, a fully functioning nuclear power plant, and nuclear missiles which, yes, you can fire across the map and wipe out settlements. You can also load up nuclear waste materials into transport pods and drop them on enemy settlements for laughs. I especially love that one. They go over to see what presents you give them and it's just toxic waste barrels. And this is just the tip of the iceberg in this game. I don't think I'm going to be able to cover it all in one video, so I hope now you can appreciate just how tough it was for me to put a video like this together. Oh, you can also become a drug dealer too by growing and processing your own drugs, which you can then sell for a lot of money. Forgot about that part. You can craft robotic appendages to replace lost limbs, such as arms, legs, a spine, even eyes and ears. F*** it, just recreate the Bionic Man or something. With the royalty expansion, you also got noble titles and throw rooms you need to build. You can create entertainment rooms for your colonists and fill it with mega screen TVs, chess tables, pool tables, all of which you can make out of gold if you've got enough gold. Except for the TVs, you can't make gold TVs. That's a shame, I would like there to be gold TVs in this. Hell, I once made a fully functioning underground city out of gold once. And it had everything. Even a wedding chapel which also was made out of gold. And while that didn't stop my colonists from complaining about how bad their lives were because they chose to eat a lavish meal while standing up rather than at the gold table and chairs that I'd provided, because I swear that not eating at a table is the worst thing that can happen to a colonist in this game. You can provide them with absolutely everything and not get bored after it. In fact, you may find yourself so into the game that you've decided to not bother trying to escape the planet. Your base is so well protected and profitable that there's no need to return home. You've set up the greatest trading and manufacturing company of all time, known as Bwitzo, which is short for beer, weed, tea, slaves and organs, despite the tea being substituted for yayo, which is this game's version of crack cocaine, but we just call it tea around our base so that it makes it seem less life-ruining to the addicts. Your people are better off here with their lives that they've made for themselves, so why bother? Why bother swapping this for something else? Why change now? I'm good here. I don't need to trade this in for anything else. I don't need to play any other games. Wow, that got serious all of a sudden. Better move on to the conclusion. In conclusion, I feel that this video didn't really do this game true justice, even after the attempts that I've made to give it a decent go. But I feel that the reason for this is that there's just too much in this game to cover in one video alone. I mean, I didn't cover the combat, or the fact you can build your own weapons. I didn't cover much of the crafting either, but if I had to say anything regarding this game, then it'd be this. If you get the chance, or if you're looking for something that's really in-depth, but also really fun that you can play at your own pace, then please, please, please give RimWorld a go. I don't think anyone can truly understand just how good this game is until you've sat down and experienced your own RimWorld story for yourself. It's a different map each time, thus it's a different story each time. No two stories are the same, and your actions are what writes each tale. And perhaps me not covering some of the other aspects about this game's a good thing, as at least it'll keep it fresh for you, should you wish to get into this one. And if you do decide to get this game, then I really do wish you all the best in handling everything that the game is going to throw at you. Unless you get a heatwave, in which case, f*** you.